Okay, so this is a continuing on with our access videos. This may be the last one or the second to the last one, depends on how long this one runs. I haven't decided yet. So this is working off of the database that we downloaded from Blackboard in our access file. There's this file called Access Practice, and so that's where I got the two files. If you watched the last video, you know what we're at, and that's where we're continuing on. So if you haven't watched the last video or done everything, your database is going to look different because we've added some extra field like the current balance field. We added a account manager table. All that was in the last video. So if you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. Okay, so we're going to talk about queries in this video. May get around to reports. I don't know. It kind of all depends, like I said, how long this thing runs. So a query is when you ask the database a question. So here you see we've got all of these records that are in this, the account manager, I'm sorry, not the account manager, but the account table. So, and again, there's only, 40 records in here. Now, normally when you're dealing with an Access database, there'll be hundreds of records. So it's not something you can just look at all in one screen like we can here. But we're keeping this simple. So we're going to go with this. So, like I said, we're going to create some queries. And this, like I said, queries are when you ask the database a question. You want the database to show you specific information. Now, when you're doing this, you need to remember that there are two things that you need to think about. One is what field is important, and two, how is the data represented? So, like if I was looking for records that were only in Kentucky. So if I'm looking for that, then of all of these fields that are up here, what's important to me is the state, because that's where the information is that I'm going to be looking for. Second thing, how is that data represented? How is Kentucky represented in this field? Is it Kentucky? Is it KEN? Or is it KY? So if I were to do a query on this, I would need to, and we'll do this query. We'll just look for our records that are in Kentucky. So I would need to know that the KY is what I'm looking for. All right. So to do queries, we're going to do it the harder way. We're not going to use a wizard or anything. I just think that this is the way that makes the most sense. So we're going to click on Create. And then we've got our query group here, and we're going to use Query Design. All right, when you open up Query Design, it opens up this window, and you should see something that looks like this. This window here is going to list all of your tables, all of your queries, or everything. Now, I only have tables. I haven't created any queries yet, but I can run a query on a query. And if, like, you remember in class, whatever it was I was searching for on Amazon, like I started off searching for chairs, and it gave me like 90,000 results. And then I said, okay, chairs that have leather. And then, so I did a query on like all of the 90,000 that I did my first query. Now I'm saying, okay, of that, how many of those are running off of leather? So that's doing kind of an example of doing a query within a query. All right, so from this, I just got to figure out what tables I'm interested in. And I'm going to just use the account table for right now. We'll get into some hairier stuff later on. So once I have that down, I can close this window. I don't need it anymore. And in this little window that opened up, you'll see that these are all of the fields that are in my account table. So all of these are here in query. So I'm just going to pop down all of the fields. So I'm just going to do everything. So I can just double click. If I double click, you'll see how it pops down here. So I'm just going to go through and put all of these down here. Oops, I missed city. Let's see if I can. So city, state. Okay. Postal. Double click. Come on. Previous balance. This one now it's gone twice. Sometimes it's a little hard. Cut. getting what you need. Let's see what I'm at. Previous balance, unpaid amount, or paid amount, not paid, new charges, current balance, and account manager number. All right. So here's all of these fields from my account table are now represented down here in my query design form. So let's look down here for a second. I'm going to make this a little smaller so I don't have to. So the first row here says field. So this is the field name, and this is the table that the field is coming from. So all of these fields come from the account table. You see it all the way across there. They're all the account tables. And we knew that when we were clicking in here. All right, so sort. Sort would be the very, the line underneath there. And it's like if I wanted to sort my information. So like here's my account table. And it's in no kind of alphabetical order. But let's suppose I wanted to sort this in alphabetical order. I could go over here into account name and say I wanted to sort it ascending. And so right now I've in essence created my first query. So up here at the top you see I've got a brand new ribbon that says query tools, and if I click on this red exclamation point, it's going to run my query. So now you see all of my names are in alphabetical order. So that's what that's for. So I'm going to go back into design view. And let's suppose, like I said before, wait a minute, I want to show you something else. Show you what these lines are for. Show. This just says whether the field shows up. So like, let's say an example, I'm all of a sudden not interested in new charges. Well, let's say I'm not into previous balance. Let's say I'm not into previous balance, amount paid, or new charges. Just as well as I want to see current balance. So I'm going to show all of my fields except for these three. And now if I run this query, you'll see that they all show up except for those three. I don't see those three. And it's still in alphabetical order because I haven't changed that. So I'm going to go back into design again. Down here below where it says criteria, this is where things get interesting. So this is where our criteria where we actually start creating our query. So as I said before, there are two things that we're interested in. The field that contains the information we need to sort by, and how that data is represented. So I mentioned earlier, like let's suppose I wanted to just do a query that just showed me the folks or the accounts that were in Kentucky. Now if I go back to my account table and just look at it, here's my state field. Again, KY is how Kentucky is represented. So that the state is the field that I'm interested in, and KY is the actual specific criteria that I'm interested in. So I'm going to go back to my query design, and under state, for my criteria, see criteria line, I'm going to change that to, I'm just going to type in KY. Now, I'm going to run this. So I go back to my query tools and hit this red exclamation point. And now it only shows the fields that are in Kentucky. Now, we'll be a little bit creative here. Nobody is going to come up to you and say, hey, can you give me a query that shows me only the accounts that are in Kentucky, that are in KY? They won't tell you that. If I were to go here and type in, this is why how data is represented is so important. If I were to go down here and type Kentucky rather than KY, and I try to run this query, I get no results. And the reason for that is there are no Kentuckys. There's only KYs. So that's really important. You need to pay attention to how your data is represented. So I'm going to go back in here to query result. I'm going to go back here, and I'll just change this back to KY and run it. And now you can see that I have my accounts in Kentucky. Now, let's suppose that you're going to do multiple queries, like you were going to do on the practical test if you take one. So we're going to do multiple queries. So I've already created the query for the accounts in Kentucky. So now what I can do, if I wanted to, I can save this query and create an object at. So I'm going to say save, and I'm going to save this as count in KY and say OK. And so now you see over here I have a brand new object. It says accounts in KY. And so like next time if I shut this thing down and then I just decide to run this thing. So I just have nothing. I have nothing open. None of my tables, my accounts, my queries, my forms, nothing's open. The only thing I have is this. If I just double click this, it's going to run that query for me. And these things become objects because maybe tomorrow we get more accounts in Kentucky, or maybe we lose some accounts. So what this does is when you run this query, it takes a snapshot of the way the tables look right then. It may change later on, but tomorrow when you click it, it may look different. But today, the way this table looks right now, these are all of my accounts that are in Kentucky. All right, moving on. I'm going to go back into Design View again for a query, and I just have Kentucky. So let's suppose that I'm interested in accounts in Kentucky, but I'm just going to see what these look like. Yeah. So I want the accounts in Kentucky, but I'm also interested in folks who owe me, like, say, more than $10,000. So again, how am I taking the field that's important to me? If I look at my table, current balance is folks who owe me. This is how much money they owe me right now. So this is going to be the fields, and I also say Kentucky. So I'm going to use that query that I did before, but I'm just going to expand on it. So now I'm going to go back into Design View one more time. Whoops, not for the table. Sorry. I got to go to the query, and then Design View. All right, and so now I'm going to say folks who owe me more than 10,000. So we use a greater than 10000. So greater than 10,000. And now I run it. I'm going to go click on my query tools, design, run, and now you see these are the folks these are my accounts in Kentucky that owe me more than $10,000. So, looking at this, going back to Design View, our criteria, we have two criteria now. State has to be KY, current balance has to be greater than 10,000. So, just accounts in Kentucky won't get it. Just folks who owe more than 10,000 won't get it. It has to check both of those boxes. It has to be accounts in Kentucky, and they have to owe more than 10,000. Now, let's suppose that I was just interested in, and you can see that this, when you think of this, you could say and. It's got to be Kentucky and greater than 10,000. Now, down there underneath here, you notice I have many other lines, but the first one starts off with or. These are actually all ors. But the first one starts off with or. So let's suppose I'm interested in accounts in Kentucky or folks who owe more than 10,000. So in other words, I want accounts that owe more than 10,000, whether they're in Kentucky or Indiana. And I want accounts that are in Kentucky no matter how much that they owe. So, or in any state, I guess I should say. So I'm going to change this to change it, instead of it being on the same line as Kentucky, I'm going to go down one line to the or line and change it there to greater than 10,000. And so now I'm kind of like running two queries at the same time. It's all of my accounts in Kentucky are going to show up no matter how much they owe, and all of the folks who owe more than $10,000 are going to show up no matter what state they're in. So now if I run this, so if any account that is not Kentucky should be greater than $10,000, you'll see that they all are. So that's and or. So let's take this another step further. And every time I do this, so like if I wanted to, I can say file, save as, save object as, I can say this is KY or 10K. And so you see I have another object over here. So if you're doing the practical test and I tell you to create a query, create the query, save it, because that's what I'm going to click on these queries and run them to make sure that they run correctly. All right. So let's suppose that I want to have looks like I got Indiana, Illinois, and Kentucky. So let's suppose I want Kentucky, who have accounts more than $10,000, and or Illinois, who has accounts more than $10,000. Now, there's a different way to write this, but I'm just going to say that like there's 50 states and not just 2. So I'm going to go back into Design View again, and I'll get rid of this. So I'll say Kentucky greater than 10,000, or Illinois greater than 10,000. Now I run it, and now you see everything's going to be greater than 10,000, and it's always going to be Kentucky or Illinois. So that's a simple query just using one table. Hint, hint. We're going to create some queries using 2 tables. So I'm going to close this down because I don't need it anymore. No, I don't want to save that. So I'm going to start off at the very beginning, and I'm going to click on create. I'm going to go to query design, and this time I'm going to use 2 tables. I'm going to use the account table and the account manager table. Now let's look at these 2 tables. I'm going to open these 2 tables up. The account table, I'm sorry, gotta close this down. Close. And I'm going to open up the account table and the account manager table. So here we have 2 tables. This is all of my accounts, their addresses, how much money they owe, all this other kind of stuff. And over here I have a field that says account manager. So, and it's got a number. These numbers correspond with the account manager number in the account manager table. So 31 over here for Avondale, whatever it is, community something or another. So 31, if I look at this account manager table, I can see 31 was Haiti Rivera. Now, wouldn't it be kind of cool if I could create queries to pull this out? But my problem is that my data is on 2 separate tables. It's on my account table and my account manager table. And there's in the account manager table, there's nothing in here that says what accounts these people service. And in my account table, here's all my account information, but there's nothing in here that says who the account manager is, with the exception of the account manager number that's here and the account manager number that's here. These 2 things mean exactly the same thing. They mean exactly the same thing in both tables. And when you have something like that, you can take 2 tables and in essence create 1 table out of it. So what I need to do is join these 2 tables together. And this is pretty easy, but it messes everybody up. So here's my account manager number in the account manager table. And if I scroll down far enough, I'm going to find the account manager number in my accounts table. And so all I have to do is join these 2 together. I'm going to join this to this. And how we do this is very simple. I just click and drag one to the other, and it creates this line. This line is actually called a join. And so now that I have that, I got some pretty interesting information that I can pull out. So let's just say I'm going to create the query again. I'm going to account number, account name. I'm not so much interested. I'm just going to say city and state and current balance. And over here, I'm going to use my first name, last name, state, gender, and let's say eval. Okay, so looking down here at the bottom, you see that things are getting a little interesting because I have all my fields named like I did before, and I have my tables that they come from. And here you'll see that like I'm actually pulling these in from 2 different tables. And I can do that because of this join. And so now if I just go up here and run this query, it gives me information that I didn't have before. So now I see here's my account and here's the account manager. So all this stuff from here to here is from the accounts table. All this stuff from here to here is from the account manager table. So now I can look at it and I can see, Avondale Community is actually supported by Haiti Rivera. The Chome Company is supported by Peter Liu. Warbucks Industries is supported by Peter Liu. I mean, now I can see this stuff that I could not see before because I joined these things together. And because of that, I can create queries based off of two tables. So I'm going to go back into design again. Back into query design again. And this time I'm going to, let's suppose I'm interested in, how many accounts from Kentucky have female managers. Interesting. Now you see that in order to make this work, I have to use two different fields because this field or this table has the accounts that are in Kentucky, and this one has the gender of the account manager. So now I'm going to create queries using criteria from two different tables. So I'll go back to my query design and I'm going to go for my first criteria in state, not the state of the account manager, but the state of the account, KY. And my gender, I think I said needs to be female. And so now if I run this, and I don't know how many results I'm going to get, so I'm going to go back to my query tools, click on this exclamation point, and it looks like I have, looks like Haiti Rivera is a female. I didn't know that. But I have what looks like 6 records from two different accounts. The accounts are in Kentucky and the genders are female. Let's take it a step further. We'll go back into design view again, and let's say I want Illinois males. Run. So all of my Illinois. Oh, wait a minute, did I change that? Hold on, let's go back. So here you see that all of my females the accounts are in Kentucky. All of my males, the accounts are in Illinois. So we use two different criteria, two different fields, created two different queries in the same query. So that's how you would run two queries that's how you create queries using two different tables. One last thing that I'll show you. It looks like I won't be able to get all this in. And it's like, here, I really suggest that you just practice this stuff. Come up with your own queries. I'll just do another one real quick. Let's go to, let's see how many of these owe more than $10,000. So I'll just pop another criteria in here. So I'm going to go to query, I'm going to go to design, and I'm going to say current balance is greater than 10,000 for both of them. And I'll run it. Everybody's from Illinois. Only the males owe us the most money. The male account managers, they owe us the most money. All right. So, and that's how you do it. Just practice this. Come up with your own queries and see what you get. Sometimes your queries are going to be 0 because maybe you just don't have any. Maybe nothing meets the criteria that you set up. All right. So the last thing I'll talk about, and then I'll end this, is how to create a form. A form is pretty easy. It's just a prettier way of looking at things. So again, I have all of my accounts here, and here's all my account managers here. So what I want to do is I want to create a form that shows all of my accounts, all of my account managers and the accounts that they have underneath them. So I'm interested in just the account manager, and underneath that I want to have all the accounts that they represent. And it'll be a tier kind of a thing. So it'll have like Brewer and all of my accounts. Haiti Rivera, all of her accounts. Lou and all of his accounts. So it'll go like that. So first thing I'm going to do is create a query. So I'm just going to create a brand new query. Okay, I don't really need to say that. Let's just close this. No. So I'm going to create a brand new query. Create query design. And from this one, I'm going to use two of my tables. I'm going to use the account and the account manager table. I'm done with that. Whoops. Close. Close. I don't need this twice. Remove table. And so I'll join it up to the account manager number. So that's joined up like we did before. And let's just say I'm interested in the account name. Let's say city, state, just for the heck of it. Current balance. And then from this one, last name, first name. So I'm interested, I'm just going to create a table that has just this information. And it's actually, you know what, I'm going to put more information from here. So I'm going to get rid of these two. Sorry, stand by. Cut. And whoops. I'm just right clicking on these and clicking cut, and it'll make it go away. And I'm actually, you know what, I'm going to click on a few of these. Delete, delete, delete. Alright, so let's go back here again. We're going to go back into, I want my tables, so I'm going to click on right click here and then we'll say show tables. So it'll bring this back up. Account manager, account, and I'll join these up again. Oh, wait a minute. I screwed that up. Remove table. I'm sorry, I screwed this up. Remove table. I forgot I accidentally scrolled. I was like, I didn't know why those disappeared. There they are. All right, so I'm going to go back. I'm just going to add all the address information. So I got the account name, street, city, state, postal code, and then I'll put in current balance. And then from this one, I'm just interested in the last name of the account manager. Let's see. So I want to have last name and then all the account information sorted by each person. Okay, so I just run this and you'll see that it's just a simple query. It's got all my information in here, so all my account managers. All of the records are showing up because I really don't have any criteria at all. Go back into design views. There's no criteria. So this is just going to be a simple query that just shows the information that I'm interested in. So now I'm going to save this thing. And I'm going to save this as save object as, save as, and I'm going to save this as a report query. Okay. And so now you see I've got a brand new thing over here that says report query. If I run it, this is what I get. All right, so now I want to create a report based off of that query that I just created. So I'm going to go create, and then here's my reports group, and I'm going to use a wizard for this one. So I'll use a report wizard. I can create a table. I'm going to create a report off of any table or any query that I have. And you'll see that they're all listed here. All of my tables and all of my queries are here. I'm interested in the report query, and here's all the fields underneath it. I want to shoot everything over because I'm going to use all of these. I'm going to click next. Now, this window here says, do you want to add any grouping? And I said earlier that I wanted to have like last name and then the accounts underneath it. And then the next last name and then the accounts underneath it. So the last name is what I'm grouping by. So I'm going to click that here, and here's my last name, and here's all the information underneath it. I'm going to sort by account name because I want it to be alphabetical underneath the last name. Next, stepped. This is only going to appear if you chose grouping 2 steps back. If you didn't choose grouping, stepped won't appear. But if we did, this is what stepped and this is what we want. That's going to give us our grouping that we wanted. it'll show up kind of like an outline. You'll see like it'll have like Brewer and then all the accounts underneath it that Brewer represents. And we'll hit next, and I'm just going to call this the manager report. And I'm going to hit finish. And when you hit finish, it thinks a little bit, and then comes up with a brand new report for you. Now, you see over here, it's got these pound signs. Remember, we did with this when we were working with Excel. It's like if it doesn't have enough room to show you the money, the everything, it's gonna especially when it's a number, it will show you nothing. So what I can do if I wanted to fix this, I can just make this balance field a little bit if I really wanted to. So what I can do is I'm going to save this thing. So I'm just close to print preview, and this is where I can make things a little big. Like state doesn't need to be as big as it is, so I can make this a little smaller and make the field that it's going to go in here a little smaller. So kind of looking at this is the name of the report. This is the header that runs across the top. This is where the account manager names will show up, and this is where the account information will show up. And so now I'm going to drag postal code over a little bit. Drag this one here too. It's about the same. And then I can make balance this field a little bit bigger. So it needs to go up one. I hate this thing because sometimes you can click and drag the wrong thing and it gets all a little bit out of balance. Alright, so now if I run this thing, let's see what it looks like. It's still not big enough. Let's change it again. There we go. This I'm going to find it. So we'll make this bigger still. Bigger still. So we get all these numbers that show up. And now let's see if we can see what it looks like now. Still not big enough. I guess I'm going to have to drag this over a little bit further. Let's get down arrow, design view. Let's make postal code smaller. Balance bigger again. Let's sign people with lots of money. There we go. Now we can see everything. So this is the way you create a report. All right, and so there's our account manager report. So that's how you create all four things: tables, forms, queries, and reports. Please, please, please practice this thing like crazy because it does take a lot of work. So I will talk to y'all later.